Hey there. Ready to dive into something totally different today?
I am so ready.
We're talking manifestor living.
All right.
And no, before you grab your vision board, this isn't about manifesting parking spaces.
Okay, yeah.
It's about understanding people.
Right.
We're going deep into the world of human design
Okay. Mm-hmm.
to explore what makes these folks tick. And trust me, it's fascinating stuff. Expert speaker is here to help us unpack it all.
I'm excited.
They've got this knack for taking complex systems and making them totally understandable. So, ready to get your mind blown?
Let's do it.
Let's go. What's fascinating right out of the gate is that we're talking about a small percentage of the population, around 8%,
Yeah,
who are literally wired to initiate action.
it's true.
They are the make-it-happen people of the world.
They are. They're the ones who, get things going.
Okay, so we're talking about roughly one person in a crowded room
Mhm.
who's got that go-getter energy. I can already see how that could lead to some interesting dynamics.
Exactly. And that's what makes manifestors so compelling, right?
Okay.
They operate differently. They have this inherent drive to make things happen, and their energy can be a shock to other types who are accustomed to a more passive approach.
The source material mentions this idea of manifestors having a closed and repelling aura, which honestly sounds kind of intense. Can you break that down for us? What does that actually mean in a practical sense?
Yeah, so it's like, imagine an invisible boundary,
Yeah.
almost like an energetic force field that naturally keeps others at a distance.
Interesting.
And it's not a conscious choice, it's simply an inherent part of their energetic blueprint.
So it's not that they're trying to be standoffish.
Right,
It's literally just how they're wired,
precisely. And this can be a source of misunderstanding, especially in close relationships.
right?
Ra Uru talks about the challenges faced by manifestor mothers
Okay.
who might find it difficult to connect with their children in the traditional nurturing way because of this natural distance their aura creates.
That's heartbreaking, but it makes sense considering what we're learning about their aura.
Yeah.
Trying to force that closeness would be like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. It just doesn't work that way.
And this leads us to another important aspect of the manifestor personality: anger.
Anger.
Yeah, the source material indicates that manifestors often carry an inherent anger,
Really?
not as a flaw, but as a consequence of their energetic makeup and how they're perceived by the world.
So it's like they're constantly pushing against resistance,
Yeah.
even when it's unintentional,
Yes.
simply because their energy is different.
Exactly. It's like being a lone wolf in a world of sheepdogs. You're not trying to hurt anyone, but everyone keeps looking at you like you're doing something wrong simply because you're different.
Right.
It's no wonder they might feel a sense of frustration or anger.
It makes you wonder how much of their anger is truly innate and how much is a learned response to constantly being misunderstood.
That's a brilliant question, and one that Ra Uruhu delves into.
Okay.
He talks about an experience where he was in a room
Okay.
full of manifestors.
Wow.
He expected this palpable, dynamic energy, but instead he found passivity.
Really? Passivity, that's the opposite of what you'd expect from a room full of people designed to initiate.
Right. It was a powerful observation that completely changed his understanding of manifestors. He realized that societal conditioning, this pressure to conform, to fit in, can lead even the most energetically driven individuals to suppress their true nature.
That's like they're told to dim their light to make others more comfortable.
Exactly. And when that powerful energy gets suppressed, it can manifest as anger, frustration, or even a sense of being lost or unfulfilled. So the question then becomes, how do we interact with manifestors in a way that honors their design and allows them to fully step into their power?
That is the million-dollar question. Especially considering that closed-off aura, it feels like a delicate dance.
It is, and the key lies in understanding the power of informing. Instead of asking or telling a manifestor what to do, which can trigger that sense of resistance and anger, you simply inform them.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Can you give us a real-world example of how informing plays out?
Absolutely. Let's say you're at home
Okay.
and you realize you need more butter from the grocery store.
Okay.
Instead of asking your manifestor housemate to pick some up on their way home, you'd simply say, "Hey, we're out of butter."
It's about presenting the information neutrally, without expectation or demand.
You got it. You're not putting them on the spot or making a request. You're simply sharing information and trusting that they'll take it from there.
Okay, that makes sense. It removes any pressure or perceived control, which seems key for manifestors. It's like giving them the freedom to choose how they want to engage.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the impact of a manifestor's energy goes beyond these everyday interactions. They have a way of leaving a mark on the world around them, often without even realizing it.
Do you have an example of that? It's kind of hard to wrap your head around this idea of leaving a mark without even trying.
Ra Uruhu shares a poignant story in the book about a time when he nearly lost his son. He talks about feeling overwhelmed by the outpouring of support he received during that difficult time, even from people he barely knew.
That's incredibly powerful.
It was a real eye-opener for him. It made him realize how profoundly his energy, his mere presence, had impacted those around him, even in ways he hadn't consciously intended. It underscored the ripple effect that manifestors have on the world.
Wow. That's a really powerful example.
And it brings us to a crucial point. This impact can be both positive and negative.
Oh, wow. So it's not always good. That seems important to understand.
It is, and it emphasizes the importance of manifestors understanding their own design and learning to wield their energy consciously. Their actions, their choices have the potential to create significant ripples, and it's their responsibility to understand and manage that impact.
That's a big responsibility.
It is, which is why rest and rejuvenation are so important for them, even though they're an energy type. Their energy isn't designed to be on all the time like a generator.
So it's not about constantly pushing and striving. Rest is important too.
It's crucial. It's about finding that balance between action and inaction, between making things happen and allowing things to unfold naturally.
There's that saying you mentioned earlier, do without doing, and everything gets done. It feels very relevant here.
Absolutely. It's about manifestors learning to trust the natural rhythms of their energy, allowing themselves moments of pause and reflection to recharge and avoid burnout. This balance is crucial for them to operate at their best and truly step into their power.
Okay, I am officially fascinated. This is so much more than just understanding personality quirks. This is about understanding the deeper energetic forces that shape who we are and how we interact with the world.
Precisely. And when we can start to view ourselves and others through this lens of understanding our unique designs, it opens up a whole new world of possibilities.
So how do manifestors find that sweet spot, that balance between their powerful energy and the need for rest? How do they navigate a world that often feels at odds with their very nature?
That's a great question, and one we'll definitely dive into as we unpack more of these insights from Manifestor Manifesto.
Okay, so we're back, and I'm really feeling this idea of honoring your unique design.
Yeah.
Like we're all dealt a hand of cards, and instead of wishing for a different hand, what if we learn to play the one we have with skill and strategy?
That's a fantastic analogy. It's about recognizing that our differences aren't weaknesses to overcome,
Right.
but rather strengths to leverage. And for manifestors, that means understanding how to use their energy in a way that feels authentic and aligned with their true nature.
Which brings us back to this idea of impact. We were talking about how manifestors naturally have a ripple effect on the world around them, even if they're not always conscious of it.
Right, and one of the biggest challenges for manifestors is learning to manage that impact responsibly. It's about understanding that their actions, their words, even their mere presence can have a profound effect on others.
It's like they're walking around with this invisible force field that can either energize or disrupt the people around them.
Exactly. And that can be a lot to handle, especially if they're not aware of it or don't understand how it works. Think about it this way. Imagine walking through a room full of perfectly balanced dominoes.
Okay, I can visualize that. A room full of potential energy just waiting to be unleashed.
Exactly. Now imagine that you're a manifestor, and simply by walking through that room, your energy sets those dominoes in motion.
Whoa, so even if they're not trying to, they're initiating a chain reaction just by being themselves.
Precisely. And that can be a beautiful thing if they're conscious of their impact and using their energy intentionally, but it can also lead to chaos and destruction if they're not careful.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do they learn to control that force field? How do they become more mindful of the dominoes, so to speak?
That's where their strategy of informing comes into play.
Right.
It's about communicating their intentions, letting people know what they're up to before they make a move.
So it's less about asking permission and more about giving a heads up.
Exactly. It's about saying, hey, I'm about to do this thing and it might create some waves, so just wanted to give you a heads up.
It's like putting a sign on the door that says, caution, energy in motion.
I love that. Yes. It's about acknowledging their impact and giving others a chance to prepare or adjust accordingly.
So it's about respecting their own energy, and the energy of those around them.
Exactly. It's about creating a space of mutual respect and understanding rather than unintentionally bulldozing over people with their powerful aura.
This is making me realize how much we avoid talking about energy in our everyday lives. We're so used to focusing on the physical, the tangible, that we forget about the invisible forces that shape our interactions.
Absolutely. And I think human design gives us a language to talk about those forces, to understand how they operate and how we can work with them more consciously.
So by understanding their design, manifestors can start to use their energy in a way that feels both powerful and purposeful.
Exactly. They can start to see their anger not as a liability, but as a source of fuel for their passions. They can start to set boundaries that honor their need for space and autonomy without isolating themselves from connection. And they can start to initiate change in the world from a place of alignment and integrity rather than force or resistance.
It's like they're finally stepping into their role as the leaders, the innovators, the change makers they're meant to be.
Exactly. And that's an incredibly exciting thing to witness.
It is. But I imagine it's not always easy. The world doesn't always embrace those who challenge the status quo. So how do manifestors deal with the inevitable resistance they encounter?
That's a great question, and one we'll definitely explore further as we continue this deep dive.
I'm ready. But before we do, I have to ask, we've talked a lot about how manifestors can manage their impact on others. But what about the impact that others have on them? How do they protect their energy from being drained or depleted?
Another excellent point. And this brings us to one of the most crucial and often overlooked aspects of manifestor living, the importance of boundaries. Remember we talked earlier about how their aura naturally creates a sense of distance? Well, that's their first line of defense, but it's often not enough.
Right, because people don't always respect those boundaries, even if it's unintentional.
Exactly. Which is why manifestors need to be very intentional about creating and maintaining healthy boundaries in all areas of their lives.
So that means saying no more often, setting limits on their time and energy.
Precisely. And that's not always easy, especially for a type that's wired to take charge and make things happen, but it's essential for their well-being.
So how do they do it? How do they say no without feeling guilty or like they're letting people down?
It all comes back to self-awareness. Manifestors need to get really clear about their priorities, their values, and what truly lights them up. And then they need to give themselves permission to say yes to those things and no to everything else that doesn't align.
So it's about choosing their battles wisely.
Exactly. And it's about trusting that by honoring their own needs, they're actually showing up as their best selves for everyone else, too.
That's a powerful reminder. It's not selfish to set boundaries. It's actually the most generous thing they can do for themselves and the people they care about.
Absolutely. And when manifestors are able to do that, when they're able to protect and preserve their energy, that's when they're truly unstoppable.
I love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but there's still so much to unpack. What else can you tell us about the unique challenges and opportunities that come with being a manifestor in a world that's not always set up for their kind of energy?
Well, one of the biggest challenges for manifestors is learning to navigate a world that often feels at odds with their very nature.
What do you mean by that?
Well, think about it. We live in a world that values conformity, obedience, and following the rules.
Right, don't rock the boat and all that.
Exactly. And that's just not how manifestors are wired. They're here to break the mold, to challenge the status quo, to create something new and different.
Which isn't always met with open arms, right?
Sadly, no manifestors often find themselves butting heads with authority figures, questioning established norms, and generally ruffling feathers wherever they go.
It's like they can't help but shake things up even if they tried.
Precisely. It's in their DNA. And while that can be a tremendous gift to the world, it can also make life a bit of an uphill battle at times.
So how do they navigate that? How do they stay true to themselves without constantly battling the system?
It's a delicate balance, that's for sure. And it requires a deep understanding of themselves and how they're designed to operate in the world.
Okay, so let's talk about that. What are some practical things that manifestors can do to stay true to themselves and navigate a world that doesn't always understand them?
Well, one of the most important things is for them to surround themselves with people who get them, people who celebrate their unique energy and support their need for independence.
Because trying to fit in with a group of people who are wired completely differently is just a recipe for frustration and resentment.
Exactly. And it's not about finding people who agree with everything they do or say, but rather people who respect their right to be themselves, even if it looks different.
So it's about quality over quantity when it comes to relationships.
Absolutely. It's about creating a tribe of people who love and appreciate them for who they are, quirks and all, and that kind of support can make all the difference in the world.
It's like having a soft place to land when the world feels harsh or unforgiving.
Precisely. And from that place of feeling safe and supported, they can then go out into the world and share their gifts more freely.
So it's about finding that balance between honoring their need for independence and allowing themselves to be vulnerable and supported by others.
Exactly. It's about understanding that they don't have to do it all alone, and that sometimes asking for help or leaning on others is actually the most powerful thing they can do.
That's a powerful message, and one that I think a lot of people, not just manifestors, can relate to. We all need that sense of belonging, that feeling of being seen and understood for who we truly are.
Absolutely. And when we can create that kind of space for ourselves and for others, it's amazing what we can accomplish together.
This is all so fascinating. I feel like we've barely scratched the surface of this whole manifestor thing.
Me too. There's so much more to explore.
Okay, so we're back. And I feel like we've uncovered so much about manifestors.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, we've mainly focused on the challenges. What about the good stuff? Like, what are their superpowers?
Oh, manifestors. They've got tons of gifts. Seriously.
Okay, lay it on me.
First off, natural leaders, like born for it.
Mm-hmm.
Visionaries, too. They see what others don't. And trailblazers, always forging new paths.
It's like they're wired to shake things up, make us question everything we thought we knew.
Exactly. They're the ones pushing us out of our comfort zones, making things happen that no one else thought of.
So for those manifestors who haven't quite figured out how to use this energy, what advice, based on the source material, would you give?
I'd say dive deeper into human design itself. That's the key to unlocking their potential, understanding their energy blueprint.
Like a roadmap for their life, kind of.
Yeah. Once they have that, they can start trusting their gut, their intuition, their authority. That's when things click.
It's like stop trying to fit in and start owning who you are.
Exactly. Let go of needing to please everyone else. Embrace your power, your impact. Live authentically. That's where the magic is.
It's not just theory. It's about putting it into practice, day after day.
It's about making it real, yeah.
This whole deep dive has been amazing.
Yeah.
Learning about manifestors makes me see the world so differently now, the energy behind everything.
It's true. Everyone's got their own design, their own way of being, understanding yours. That's a game changer, manifestor or not.
So true. And listeners, if this sparked your curiosity, keep exploring human design. And hey, next time you encounter someone who seems, I don't know, fiercely independent, maybe cut them some slack, they might just be a manifestor living their truth. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.